Hey, this is Christine, your DIY craftaholic. Welcome back to my awesome subscribers, as well as those joining me for the first time. If you're new to my channel, I appreciate you watching and hope you'll stick around to the end. After today, you're family, so please consider subscribing. In today's video, I have some more fall inspiration for you. So without further ado, let's get crafting. So for DIY number one, here's what you'll need. 2 of these truck panels from Dollar Tree, some paint, I'm using Teal from Apple Barrel, some of these mini pumpkins also from the Dollar Tree. So I removed the label from the panel. You don't necessarily need a heat gun for this, you can just peel it off. I just use it because it does help to heat up the glue. So this is mixed paint, which was left over from another DIY I did earlier. So I just decided to use it rather than what I showed you at the beginning. Here I'm just topping it up with some more white paint, yellow, and some teal. And then I'll just set that aside. I want to give my truck a body. So here I am using pieces of poster board, which I had measured and cut off camera. One I cut 4 inches by 2 inches. And 2 small pieces 2 inches by 2 inches. And I'm just making a small mark to indicate where I need to place the glue. After sanding it down, I applied hot glue on the long edge and glued that on top of my marking, just right above the wheel. And I also made sure that the front and the back pieces were aligned, and then I glued those on as well. Now for this part, before gluing on the other panel, you want to make sure that it is properly aligned. So stand it on the wheels just to make sure it's not wonky before you glue it on. And if you need to shave off any excess, go ahead and do that. I then applied some hot glue and secured the other panel onto it. And then I also flipped it over and add some more hot glue just for extra support. Gotta have support for those pumpkins. You don't want them falling out as you're driving along the road. I decided to make a cover for my truck. So off camera, I measured the distance that I needed to cut, and I cut that from a cereal box. Here I am just lightly sanding down the cardboard, and now it's time to paint. Isn't that cute? Oh, love it already. So here I started off using some Waverly antique wax on the gate and the wheels, but that didn't turn out the way I wanted it. It was too light, so I painted it black. Now it's time to load up our truck with our pumpkins. I wanted to elevate the pumpkins, so I had to use this dried sea moss, but that wasn't working at all. Then I decided to just, go without it. So I placed the pumpkins in, and as you can see, they were falling out the truck. So here I use a piece of jute twine to create like a barrier, and then I cut out this mini pumpkin from one of the Dollar Tree calendar and glued those on both sides, the word on one side and the pumpkin picture on the other side. And off to the market we go with our truck full of pumpkins. I love it. What do you think? So now we're on to DIY number 2. Now I'm gonna call this pumpkin decor, because this is a combination of just adding a little flair to these Dollar Tree pumpkins. This one, all I did was just add some jute and a little leaf, and that was done. Now for this one, I mixed up some of the teal paint with some white paint, and then I painted the pumpkin. My original idea was to use it for something else, but then I decided to just use it for decor. And that is done. Now we're on to DIY number 3, and this is another 2-in-1 project. I won't bore you too much with this because I know you all know how to make beaded garland. So this is how I paint my beads. I put them on a skewer and attach the skewer into something secure like a piece of foam, and then I paint them. But you can do whatever is best for you, just as long as you get your desired outcome, which is painted beads. Then here I'm just going to take these pumpkin ornaments which I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'll paint it with some of this apple barrel pumpkin paint. I'm only painting one side because for this side I will be using some of this sunflower napkin from the Dollar Tree. This is 2-ply, so you want to remove the plain side, and then I place the napkin over the surface just to make sure it was lined up properly with where I need to place it down. Then I placed a slit at the top as well as the bottom to help me find the center of the pattern when I was ready to paste it down. Here I am applying as much Mod Podge to the surface before I place the napkin on top, just making sure to find the center. Then I'm just using my finger now to force out any air before I actually smooth it down. And when I was done, I then add some more Mod Podge, and that is to seal it in. And here now I'm just tearing off the excess napkin and then drying it with my heat gun. Now this part is optional. You don't necessarily need a heat gun to dry it. You can leave it to dry naturally. And now it's all dry. I'm taking my pencil and I'm going to be writing the word fall on this side, and I then use a small paintbrush with some Waverly paint in Ivory to paint the word, and we're all done. And now it's time to make our garland. Here I cut enough of the jute twine and just string it through the pumpkin first. Then I evened it out and taped down the ends, and this is just to make it easier to string the beads. Now it's time to make the tassel. So what I did, I just wrapped the twine around 4 of my fingers, probably about 15 times. It can be more or less depending on how full you want your tassel to be. And when I was satisfied, I just wrapped a piece of the twine around the top, tied that, and then cut the bottom open. For decor purposes, I added just a tiny bead before I actually tied it to the tassel. And then to prevent the tassel from swiveling around, I just added a dot of hot glue, and we're done. Now on to the next DIY. Now for this one, I had this Dollar Tree Cloche or Cloche or whatever it is called in my stash. Also this pumpkin with these flowers and berries on top. Here I'm removing these from the pumpkin. I then cut a piece of the flower foam and used some of this dry moss that I used earlier. Glued that down, added the moss, added the fillers, added the pumpkin. I then made a tiny jute bow and glued it on, and just like that, we're done with this. And this, you can reuse this, redecorate for any season. I originally wanted to use this cloche for something else, which I am still going to use it. And we're all set. Now here's another filler DIY. This vase I had for some time, and I'll just be decorating this with the sunflower napkin that I used earlier. I think I'm falling in love with the thrill of doing Mod Podging napkin on stuff. Or maybe that's just me. All right, Christine, focus here. So I wiped down the vase with a baby wipe, and here I'm using the other half of the napkin I used earlier. But for this one, I'm cutting off the excess, leaving about a 1/4 of an inch around the edge. And here we'll follow the same technique like we did for the pumpkin garland. except for when we get to this part. All right, if you notice that this is like a mirror of this. So when you're putting them on, this one is facing this way, that one is facing that way. You want this one to face this way, so this will be like this. So you're lining them up like that, and then this one will go there. So that's something you would have to pay close attention to when you're gluing down your pieces, if you're going to be doing it on square objects like this. If it's just a vase, then that's fine, but when you're going to be putting on 4 pieces, then make sure that you're lining them up accordingly, because they mirror each other on the napkin. You want to make sure that you're smoothing down any bubble that may be under the napkin when you put it down for the first time. So you use your finger to smooth out the air, and then you use your brush to secure the edges. And then you put on more Mod Podge or sealant. You can either use your heat gun to dry or let it dry naturally, which I believe I'm going to be doing. I'll just set this aside to dry naturally. And there we have it. All right, guys, I think all of these turned out beautifully. Thank you for sticking around and watching me craft. I had so much fun creating these DIYs. Let me know in the comments down below which one of these was your favorite. My favorites were the truck, as well as the sunflower pumpkin and the vase. If you like content like this, please consider subscribing to my channel by hitting that subscription button and that notification bell so YouTube notifies you whenever I upload a new video. And to keep watching, I recommend this video right here as well as this playlist. And stay safe until next time. Bye.